What does it mean to bring all of who you are, your career, your identity, your healing gifts into one integrated life? Today's guest, Sam, has just walked that very path, moving from the financial industry into entrepreneurship, healing, and advocacy for the LGBTQIA plus community and for the Asian community as well. We're diving into her journey of identity, resilience, and creating safe spaces for others. Sam, thank you so much for being here today. Can you start us off by introducing yourself in your own words?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Sam. My pronouns are she, her. And yes, I think you did an amazing job with that introduction. I'm still getting used to hearing it. But in a few short words, I feel like what I've been really trying to do is, as you said, integrate the different aspects of my life, whether that's on a professional level, a personal level, or now in the healing spaces and seeing how they can all kind of come together and allowing for myself and others to really show up as we are across all the different spaces instead of having to be a separate person in each one.
I love that so much because we can get so like it feels like compartmentalizing ourselves is what it feels like to
Yeah.
me in my brain. It's like, oh, I'm this over here, but when I'm in this place, I'm this other person and this
Yes.
other part of ourselves. I want to start sort of back at the time when you were in the financial industry. What was that like and what was that navigating that space, especially like while holding different parts of your identity more privately?
Yeah, I think it was a really interesting time because I was still kind of in that exploration phase. I was in my mid-20s when I first entered it, and I was still not 100% sure even on my identity, my sexuality, and what that meant. So I kind of explored that while in the financial industry. And the COVID pandemic kind of hit right in the middle of that. And so that just kind of disrupted everything. And that's when I finally stopped for a second and realized, oh, like this is how I actually feel about things when I have time to rest. And I'm not just on the go 24/7, waking up before the sun comes up. And then I get home after it's pitch black and, just kind of on that cycle of repeat, even though with quotes, I had that entrepreneurship life and can sort of choose my own schedule. I think a lot of people who are in entrepreneurial roles realize very quickly that you can sometimes get a lot more wrapped up into it than a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job. So it was a lot of just discovering myself and finding who felt safe to me. I
Mm.
think that's when I first started getting into networking, and that's as a very introverted person. And so for me, I'm very attuned energetically, and I didn't know what that meant at the time either. So a lot of this self reflection that I did later, I realized, oh, I was so burnt out, constantly burnt out. I didn't even know that I had this underlying anxiety, or I was just so tired and needed to rest, or oh, this space I actually just didn't feel comfortable and I thought it was something else. And so yeah, it was just a really big time of understanding myself and allowing me to kind of have some initial experiences to then reflect on later and kind of understand what was what. I know that was a roundabout way of answering, but
No, that was lovely. That was perfect. Because
yeah,
I think what you've done with your answer is do exactly what we're talking about, which is like integrating all the parts. Because, yes,
yeah,
there's like one part of it that we may be trying to focus on, but in a day, you're not just one person the whole day. There are so many
yeah.
things that we do in a day, so many, so many basically not masks, but so many hats that
Yes,
we wear
yeah,
throughout the
yeah,
day. And you said something that's actually quite interesting because we talk a lot about entrepreneurship and,
right.
really encouraging people to walk their own path. And that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I want to delve a little into what you said about how, as entrepreneurs, you can get really wrapped up. How did that sort of happen for you? Whatever you're comfortable sharing with regards to that.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is depending on how you get into entrepreneurship, you're kind of at the whim of whoever's kind of teaching you or what
Mhm.
you're learning from. And so I think a lot of people who enter the financial industries, insurance industries, any type of sales position, you might relate to like having a lot of training in sales, but you don't necessarily get a strong foundation in how to build a business. And really, when you're in sales, you're building a business. And so there was a lot of messiness. There was a lot of messing up and doing things not in an ideal way. And it's so much harder sometimes to try to fix it after the fact because now you just like have all this stuff going on, then you're trying to manage and then trying to start from scratch again. And so I think getting into entrepreneurship and sales was just a really was one big learning experience. I learned how to not start things. I learned how to not organize things. I learned like how to create those foundations, and I've kind of later in life learned to appreciate that time because I realized without it, I wouldn't have put in as much effort to learn all of these skill sets later and look them up later. How to build a business plan, how to set up your client relationship management, how to keep up with the people that you're networking with, how do you choose which opportunities are the ones to put your efforts towards so that you're not just doing 10 different things and then burning yourself out and you can't really dedicate enough time towards those ones that are really going to become fruitful. So it was messy is probably the best way I could put it, but really it helped pave the way for stronger foundations later.
I love that. And what happens in those situations is that then today you kind of get to be the master about all of those things that you
Oh
learned the
yeah.
hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
and I
lovely.
know I have my picture here with my partner and I. It's our little keep it saucy picture. But that was actually one thing that I was really discovering at that time too. That kind of just made it a little bit more challenging. My partner at the time was not out, and so I was really also navigating a lot of underlying anxiety, which kind of later on leads
Mhm.
to going into mental health and trying to advocate for mental health and wellness and things was because I didn't realize till later all of this underlying anxiety of the spaces that I'm stepping into, wondering if I'm going to be accepted, even simple things as asking me, what I did over the weekend. It's like you just have all of these things in your head that are like, do I share what I did? Do I share? Or if they mistakenly say my boyfriend, do I correct them? And like all of this that I didn't even realize that I was going through at the same time, that just made it so much more challenging as I was talking to clients and really feeling that pull away from authenticity because you're essentially kind of deciding, am I going to lie or not? To
Yeah,
every person I
yeah.
cross paths with. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so I'm so glad that you were so like blunt in saying it like that because that is what it feels like in the moment,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, do I lie
Definitely.
or do I just tell the truth? But then there's
Mhm.
another person that you have to honor. You have to honor their
Right.
wishes and respect the way in which they want to
Right.
handle coming
Right.
out. Um, I have I have a lot of questions about this, but I have a question about that in the financial industry. I was in the insurance
Sure.
industry for a long time,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, not the space that you exactly. It's quite easy to like come out. It's just
Yeah.
it's not, at least in my own experience, it's not that it's a negative thing still, but it's not like a welcome thing. How was that for you?
Yeah. I think what it ended up coming to was finding my safe people, at least amongst my colleagues and those that I worked with, and being able to open up to them and kind of get to be my authentic self, so to speak, at least in these kind of certain situations. And I think it was also having other people share if they were in the LGBT community or just be a little bit more open about having a partner and things like that, that also did kind of pave the way for me to feel a little bit more comfortable when in professional spaces. And kind of again, it's like evaluating who are the safe seeming people within each of these spaces. And from there, once I was kind of able to open up, and unfortunately, a lot of this had to come after COVID because it was a lot easier to not have to see these people face to face and like face that rejection or not like head on. So I was able to kind of just like ease into it. Okay, I don't have to see them. I'm just going to start putting rainbows everywhere. I'm going to make it very apparent from the beginning. And I decided that I was going to try to be that safe person for others. So then I kind of just started putting little rainbows, or I would put a picture of myself and my partner in certain presentations. And just like those little, I guess, things that if you know, then you know
Yeah.
what you're looking for. And so I just tried to do that as much as I could. And I did get to at least experience some of the positive ends of it, of having some people reach out to me and saying thank you. Like, I have no one in my immediate space that I feel comfortable with, but I appreciate you being visible. So I just kind of took that in and continued to run with it.
I love what you shared because it's so small, like things like, the rainbows and putting a picture
Yeah,
and those
my
little
picture.
things. Yes. It's so, it's so big, right? When you're
Yeah,
making the decision to do it, but it is
yeah,
also like a small way. And also love that you shared start with your safe people. And that kind of gives you strength to then, keep stepping it up and kind of shows you what it feels like to be in this space and in
yeah,
the presence of being yourself and that level of authenticity. And I think that,
yeah.
kind of helps us grow. Now, I know you were on Netflix and
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that. What show were you on and how did that further like amplify this sort of what to me very clearly feels like a passion and a mission that you're on in
Yeah.
opening up for people to be able to have those conversations?
Yeah, I was on Netflix's The Ultimatum Queer Love, the first season. So that aired in 2023. And I think that it really fit in nicely with kind of this pattern that you were also mentioning that I was on. And at the time, I had met my partner in 2020. And I don't know, I think this is also where some of the spirituality part of it came in, where I just kind of had this knowing, and I just felt like I wanted to create a brand for us, which is what this Keep It Saucy is. And that, even after only maybe a year or so of dating, and I just put a little Instagram page together, Keep It Saucy. I posted some things about us meeting for the first time and things like that. And that ended up being how we were found. And we had, a solid 120 followers maybe on it. So, I mean, if that's not fate, I don't know. But we really did not have a following at all. Like, we were a year and a half into dating, and in some level, it felt like we were meant to do it. And there's a there's a severe lack of especially Asian queer representation, and I think sometimes you'll even find even less where it's like two Asians in an LGBT relationship. A lot of times, you don't get to see that. And so we just saw this as another opportunity of, we can show how our journey is, and our main focus is on the relationship and our own personal selves. And I feel like we went into it with all of I mean, I'm going to say this, maybe I'm biased, but the right reasons of really wanting to do good with it. And it wasn't about just trying to be influencers. We definitely are not that, but we try. And just trying to be that representation. And there's a lot more to it. Unfortunately, it was very traumatizing for my partner. And so that's why
Mm,
they're not as visible right now. And we're kind of still on that journey.
yeah.
But the intention to do good with it has and still is there.
I love it. And I feel like that's what you're doing, right? Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what you're doing right now. You're doing good
Yeah.
and you're turning it into the conversations that matter because
Hmm.
I have a family member who is part of the LGBTQIA plus community and
Ah,
we are Latino and I just am holding my breath for the moment that they
yeah.
decide to speak out because
Right.
of how is that going to be received. So I love that you shared about, how being able to share that in the Asian
Yeah.
community, how important that is, and highlighting that. It's so important, and it does open the way for these conversations, but it most importantly opens the way for other people to see what is possible and
Yeah,
to understand that yes, I can be who I am. That those other people, that's their opinion and they can look at
yeah,
it that way, but that does not take away from me, from any
right.
parts of me. So I love that.
Right. Oh, 100%. And I think if I've learned anything from this whole journey, it's really, it starts with the self and your own personal belief and confidence. And once you can start healing aspects of that, and when you really can stand in who you are, everything else becomes less important. And then you can just be that kind of beacon for others, right? And so, when I was kind of in my self discovery phase, when I was still understanding what my value was. And obviously, I'm still on that journey, but I think I wouldn't have been able to come out where I am today if I didn't kind of center myself, and if my partner and I really, it was very important to us that when we agreed to do it, we said, we're putting each other, like ourselves first, relationship second, and whatever happens, we fully understand what what the potential result could be, which is we could end up, breaking up after this. And from the first season, we ended up being, the ones who stuck together. So I'm proud of that as well.
Gosh. That's a great accomplishment. Honestly, that's
Yeah,
amazing. That's truly
yeah,
amazing. I'm glad to hear that because I didn't watch, but that's awesome to
yeah,
hear. I want
yeah,
to, and thank you so much again for sharing that. And I kind of want to keep segueing into like putting all of the aspects of yourselves together.
yeah.
So we've talked about a few, but I know you do a few other things. Can you tell me a little bit about everything that you do today and how you're using, your platform to help people in every way that you do?
Yeah. So really it was around 2020 that I also started meeting more spiritually inclined friends online. And I just got really into tarot. And it's funny because as a kid, I loved playing cards and I was just like playing with playing cards all the time. And then turned out later that was going to come in handy. And so I started experimenting back then. And in 2021, I just started practicing reading for people I didn't know. And I went through a certification program, and I started to kind of understand that I really loved helping in the healing spaces and that I was pretty good at it. And I think one of the other things too that I've kind of discovered is that I really love kind of inner child work, or working with integrating kind of our past selves with our current selves, which really can help us unblock certain like stuckness that we might experience. And so I've kind of just started to realize that's just a part of me no matter where I go. So if I'm going to be in a professional setting, I'm going to bring my spiritual intuitive self. If I'm going to be, out and about doing anything, I'm very much in flow with my intuition. And so symphonic alignment kind of became this thing that would bring my spirituality and healing together with like business type services that I offer, which is more of that like freelancing, more 3D technical kind of stuff, and then kind of bridging in the community building all together under one place. And so it's really about helping to align all of the fragmented pieces together, and providing a space where it doesn't matter, where you come from or what your background is and certain belief systems. But as long as we kind of have this attention to an openness to learn, or understand new perspectives, like it really, like, you can't separate it. You can for maybe so long, but eventually it's gonna come crashing down on you. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And also I love tarot as well. I'm learning, I'm like teaching myself essentially,
Yeah,
and I just love it as well.
yeah.
Um, how do your tarot and healing sessions fit into the way that you serve people? How do you like put those together?
Yeah, I was really grateful that the certification program that I was enrolled in, one of the things that they touched on quite a bit was actually ethical reading. And so I've kind of really tried to emphasize the ethics and the focus on self-empowerment and centering the person who's receiving the reading, because this would be a whole other conversation, but there are so many unethical readers in my perspective
Mm.
that really it's just about making money. And that's why you get all of these perceived scams and things, and you're not really getting value. But that's kind of how I've started to bridge in mental health and wellness, because a lot of what we're experiencing, there's a lot that we can learn from like going within and understanding our emotions and connecting that to our past experiences. And so I really, as I'm in conversations, I can't really help it. If something comes up and I feel like I have something to share and they want to hear it, I mean, we kind of just go there. And it's kind of been part of how I've also created more safe spaces for the LGBT community, because sometimes, things like pronouns might be really important. And so,
Mhm.
again, finding that safety of who you're receiving a reading from that is going to be respectful, but also understand to a certain extent what your experience might be. All of that is in the delivery of the messages as well. And so it's really important to be very attuned to like the needs of the client. And, if it's getting a little bit too much, then you kind of pull back a little so you don't scare them off. Or, like it's a very, there's a lot more to it than I think some people realize, because of all of the readers who are just like, ask me yes or no questions, pay me $5 and I'll give you an answer. I'm like, no, let's like bridge this together and really see what's happening here. So
I love that you mentioned the ethics part of it, because I think when you read for someone other than, like, I read for myself, but when you read for someone other than yourself, I think there are so many things to take into consideration. And
yeah.
I have to tell you, today I've never heard someone mention ethics and tarot in the same sentence, and I am ecstatic that you just shared that.
Oh
That
yeah,
makes
I have a whole code of ethics, and yeah, it's a really, if somebody were to come to me and just say, "Hey, when am I going to meet, my future partner?" I'm like, "Okay, hold on. Let's pull it back. What do you feel is missing within you that is causing you to feel like you need somebody to fill that?" Right? So that's one of the ways that you kind of like always bring it back to the client. And so it's not just feeling pressured, that if somebody really feels like they need to know what some answer is, it's like, okay, let's get back to a place of empowerment. What's going on here? How can we connect this to some past experiences? Let's find some cycles, reveal them, and then that's where the healing can start.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions for you as we begin to
Yeah.
wrap up. My first one is, for people who may feel like they can't fully integrate all of those parts of themselves that you are doing so beautifully, um, whether it's, their work, their community, their, sexuality, their choices and partner, whatever it is, all of the aspects of life that make us who we are in day to day, what encouragement would you offer them?
Yeah, I would definitely say it can be really challenging, and this isn't something that'll be natural to a lot of people, but really trusting in our own like gut instincts, our own intuition about what's right for us. There's so many people who claim to say they have the solution to everything on earth, and the truth is it's different for everyone. We're all on our own paths, and you know what's right for you. And so don't let anybody else tell you what's right for you, especially if you have this radar trying to tell you in the background, like, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. Like, trust that. And I think it's really just learning to listen to the voice that we've been taught not to listen to. Like, it's by design. They want us to just fall into the system, but it's really about trying to hear that voice and go towards it. Yeah.
I love that. I preach that to anyone who will listen. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. It is so true. And the part that you say we have been taught, it has been designed this way. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
we tend to listen to the loudest one, but that intuitive voice is usually so subtle. And
Oh,
it is
yeah.
always there, but it is subtle. Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to slow down to be able to hear it. But thank you so much for sharing that. That was a beautiful answer. I have
Yeah.
one last question for you as we end
Sure.
today.
Sure.
As we end, when the pace has slowed or the road has sort of twisted, on your journey, what did that season reveal to you about yourself and about the dreams that you're chasing when things weren't necessarily going so fast?
That's such a great question. I really, I think some things that I've kind of learned along the way are similar to what I mentioned about kind of learning to trust your own voice and understanding your own direction. This is kind of an offshoot of tarot, but human design is kind of the next path that I've been on. Also in a certification program and kind of refining those skills. But some of the things that I've learned about myself that feel so right is that I have somewhat of this fixed fate. And so it's like I know this community building that I'm working towards, which I call the conscious altruism movement, is a really strong part of my path. And so even though I don't necessarily know how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, for me personally, I know that I have this like vision that I'm working towards that's far off into the future. And so when I slow down, it really is like grounding back into that knowing of where I'm heading, but being at peace with how I get there. And challenges don't necessarily mean I'm on the wrong path. Sometimes it just means I have something to learn that's going to help me get there and in a way that is going to serve myself and others in a better way. So, yeah, challenge does not mean wrong path. Difficult does not mean wrong path. It's really just about, again, I accidentally clicked. It's really just about trusting that you know what's best for you at the end of the day, and so that that slowing down is really just how you can feel into that and um, reconnect and reacquaint yourself with it.
That was so beautifully said. Thank you so much. Sam, and if someone wanted to get a hold of you, work with you, learn from you, where could they find you?
Yeah, so my website is symphonic alignment.com, and that's my main website. And if you do a forward slash links at the end, it kind of is similar to like a link tree. So I have YouTube, Instagram, as well as my website. And yeah, that's probably the best way to get in touch.
Love that. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
and
you.
sharing your story and your heart with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Of course, of course. And to you, Free Spirit, if this conversation has resonated with you, head over to www.flyingupstreampodcast.com for more insights, resources, and episodes to support your own journey of living authentically. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream. Until next time.